Well, hey, good morning, Georgia, and everybody else tuning in today on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I've got a couple of Georgia senators here, a Republican, Senator John Albers and Senator Sally Harrell. How you guys doing?
Doing great, Tim. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and my co-host has just arrived, Allie Kelly from the Ray, and then we've got Representative Eric Allen, who's shown up here with us, and we're just going to have a fun time today talking about the beginning of the legislative session, which is upon us again, next Monday. So there's so much pomp and circumstance surrounding this. You think about the Wild Hog Supper, the State of the Address, State of the Judiciary Address, all the fun stuff that kind of happens. Let me start with you, Senator Harrell. What is kind of one of your favorite pomp and circumstance of the legislative session? What do you kind of look forward to at the beginning?
At the beginning of the session, one of the things that I enjoy is the calmness, because things get very chaotic very quickly and issues start flying here and there. And I just like to kind of sit down and enjoy seeing my colleagues again and thinking about the issues that are on the table and really having some time to look at them in some detail before the chaos starts flying.
Yeah, how about you, Senator Albers? What do you enjoy about the pomp and circumstance?
Well, I'm always awestricken, Commissioner, every time I walk in the Capitol building, even though I'll be going into my 12th year. The opportunity, as Senator Harrell mentioned, just to reacquaint yourself with your colleagues who you've not seen face to face as much. We're very collegial in the Senate. We like to get along. We like to kind of be I always say kind of the anti-DC mood of trying to keep great conversations and communication going. And certainly hearing the governor's State of the State address is always exciting for us to see what his priorities and budget's going to look like for the year. And we march over to the House and go into the House chambers. So look, it's a thrill and it's an honor. And we're really blessed to be in Georgia.
Representative Allen, I know that there is this kind of tension between the House and the Senate. And I know that I've heard senators actually joke and say that, that House members have to put on shoes to come into the Senate and stuff like that. I mean, do you ever get any flack from these senators about the difference between the chambers?
I think it's they're a more intimate body. In all seriousness, they have a chance to build relationships that we really don't get to build in a house, with 180 members. I do think we wear shoes, so I don't know if that's true, but someone told me a long time ago, the other party is your friendly opposition, but the other chamber is your enemy. So we send a lot of good bills across the hall, only to have them come back not so good. So I'll speak with that.
Well, Allie Kelly, my good friend and co-host today. Allie, you're at the Capitol every day. You're out there on the third floor. You're interacting with representatives and senators, and I know you really look forward to being up there as well. What's some of your favorite things about the beginning of the session?
Well, the first day is like the first day of high school, so I get to relive high school every year. And I don't know what that says about me, but it's so true. Getting to see old friends and make new acquaintances that during the first week of the session is a lot of fun. And I'm really looking forward to Monday, the 10th, to starting it all off again.
A representative and senators, lobbyists often get a bad rap. But I've been doing Teen PAC at the Georgia Capitol since 1994, and we're actually in every single state now. We're in all 50 states with the program. All 50 states have lobbyists. And I find, because I'm lobbied myself over at the commission across the street from you guys, I find that, that good lobbyists actually help me do a better job as an elected official. I wonder your thoughts about the whole lobbying thing and how it's important. Let me start with you, Senator Harrell, and then go to Senator Albers, and then to the representative.
Sure. So as a state senator, of course, and a state rep, our jobs are part-time, but we deal with policies and issues that have to do with every single subject that may impact a life in Georgia. So that's a massive amount of information. And we are not experts in all of it. Usually each of us brings our own expertise that maybe we have through our career or whatever, but we actually rely on those lobbyists to be the experts in their fields and to brief us and to educate us. One thing that kind of keeps that balance, since they are lobbyists, is the lobbyists, they have to, we have to be able to trust the information that they give us. So if we ever find that we are not getting accurate information from a lobbyist, they've lost our trust. And then they're not going to have that voice anymore. So that's kind of what keeps that, that imbalance.
Senator, how about you, sir?
Well, yeah, I want to echo some of the comments that Senator Harrell mentioned. You know, sometimes I think people misunderstand what the word lobbyist even is. Many of those are non-for-profits. They're folks such as the PTA. They're folks representing the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Association, autism, things of that nature. So others are representing businesses, right? We've got some crown jewels here in Georgia. Almost every one of us has a Home Depot that we're fond of, and it's one of our treasured companies. We want to make sure that something that we do is supporting the great jobs and revenue they collect for us, or whether it be there or Aflac or one of our newest exciting investments by Rivian, a new electric car company, one of the largest economic development projects in history. So working hand in glove with all people, listening to all parties, and ultimately having us make great decisions. And that includes people like yourself. And Commissioner, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to just tell everybody how fortunate we are to have you serving in the Public Service Commissioner. And just the way that you do your outreach and your communication, I think is really the model for most everyone in the state. So thank you for your great work.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Representative Allen, same question to you. You and I spent a week in Tokyo together with Senator Harrell and some others, and we learned a lot. You and I wrote an op-ed together in the Atlanta Business Chronicle and the Marietta paper. I mean, working with lobbyists, working with people in the other party. I mean, that's, different positions. That's important, isn't it? As you kind of try to move the state forward.
Yeah, I think people, if all you watch is your friendly favorite, national news channel, you might not understand how important relationships are in this building. Whether that be with other legislators, whether it be with lobbyists, whether it be with just really advocates. I think that's one of the groups that we don't talk enough about. But all of them help, as Senator Harrell said, really educate and inform all of us that work here and serve our communities. Because as a part-time legislator, there is no way to be as intimate on all of the issues without having those relationships. So I think that the collaboration that starts, well before the first day of session, but goes all the way through the end and beyond, is really what makes this place special and unique.
There's a number of states that have full-time legislators. You think about New York, you think about Michigan, California, states that we go in and team pack. And I don't know, I feel like part-time legislators, they're not paid enough for one, but I do feel like that even though, as Representative Allen just said, that they're a little bit handicapped in the sense that they are only being paid part-time and they're only working part-time, I think there's a lot of benefit to that for the state. What do you think about it, Allie?
Well, I mean, it's a quarter of every year of intense activity, but the activity is year round. So, I mean, the folks we're talking to today essentially have two jobs year round because, they have the job that supports them and their family, and then they have their job representing their district. And it's truly a year round calendar of activities. But that first quarter of the year is so intense, and it's really a 24/7 responsibility that these three individuals have to their districts and to the calendar of the session for the first 4 months. And the other thing that I just, think is unique about Georgia that not many people understand is while we have a 40-day session every year, it's not 40 consecutive days. And the schedule is really put together by the House and the Senate as the session moves along. And so it's the first quarter of every year is intense, 24/7, but it also isn't something that folks like the two senators and Representative Allen can really plan the rest of their lives around, because the session is sort of in real time calendaring itself from week to week, from day to day, and from month to month. So the sacrifice and the dedication are intense in a multifaceted way for our legislators and public servants.
And Commissioner, can I add something to that real quick?
Yes, please.
I think there are a lot of benefits to a part-time legislature, but I also think it has one huge drawback, and that's the fact that it really limits the pool of people who are able to serve. You have to be, as was just said, you have to be in a very unique professional or life situation to be able to serve in a job in which you're paid part-time. But if you do the job the right way, it really is a full-time job. And so, although there are a lot of benefits, I think that, having the ability to serve open up to a wider swath of population is one of the negatives that I think we have. And if, in some states where there are what you would term a professional legislature, you find more teachers, nurses, jobs like that are actually serving in the legislature because it's not as disruptive.
Yes, Senator Harrell, what do you think about that?
Well, this is something I've really put a lot of thought into, and I could argue both sides. Representative Allen makes good points that if you had a full-time legislator, you could involve more people like teachers and nurses, and certainly we need to hear from those professions. At the same time, with a part-time legislature, you have people who have to have another way of making a living. And so they might give everything to the legislature during those 40 days, but the rest of the year, they're out working like average real people in their communities. And I think that keeps the legislators more like real people rather than like career politicians. So I can really see that going both ways. Now, I served in the House years ago, like the late 1990s and the early 2000s. And at that point, I loved the idea of this part-time citizen legislature. Now I've come back and I'm in the Senate, and I really do feel that the policies have gotten so much more complex. We've grown so much, particularly in technology, that our laws are having a difficult time keeping up. So I do think that if we went to more of a full-time professional legislature, we would end up with better policies that are better thought out. And it would, if we met for longer, it would enable more people to be able to participate in the process. But like I said, I can see pros and cons to both scenarios, but I do think now coming back to the legislature that there is more need for a longer session.
Senator Albers, what do you think? Part-time, full-time, longer, shorter?
I always wanted to stay a citizens legislature, and the comments are true. While it might be a part-time pay, it is definitely full-time work, but I don't want it ever to be a full-time position. Some of the states you mentioned are dealing with some of the largest problems there are in the nation right now. And I think when you get into that large bureaucracy of people sometimes who are trying to hold on to a job rather than a sacrifice to service, I think you lose some of the great things that we have in Georgia and other states that have a citizens legislature. So I support where it's at. I do think we need additional staff, though, for our offices, whether it be in the House or the Senate. I think that could help to bridge that gap. We're very proud that we're the lowest cost of government of all 50 states. However, we've had the same support when Georgia had 2 million people as we have close to 11 million people. So I would like to see that evolve, reasonably and responsibly. And I do want to mention something I think is really important, Commissioner, is, a lot of times, and Representative Allen made a great point of this, of watching the national media. a few years ago, I did an analysis of our 2-year session and looked at the thousands of bills and resolutions that we passed. And most people don't realize that 99% of those were nearly unanimous. They were not Democrat, Republican. They were not urban versus rural. They were 99%, which in my book is an A++ of working together to solve the problems. So, if you pull out the newspaper or a blog site or a national TV show and you see those same issues being played over and over again, take a minute to learn and dig a little deeper, or contact any one of us, because I know we'd love to have a conversation with you to show how we do things a bit differently.
Well, we've had Representative Matt Gamble join us from Cartersville. Matt, I'll get you to unmute your microphone and say hello. We're just discussing the part-time versus full-time aspect of the, of the General Assembly. I know your wife served in the legislature. You serve in the legislature now. How do you feel? Do you feel like a part-time legislature works well for Georgia, or is it time we move to full-time?
No, I think I support the part-time citizen legislature format that we have here, even with the changes in technology and the things that have added a lot of additional pressures to the job. The great thing about it is it helps to keep us accountable to our constituents. We're able to be in our communities on a more regular basis, and in the churches and athletic teams and grocery stores and civic clubs and all of that. That's an element that I think we've lost to some degree, where, especially at the federal level, where it's full time year round, and there's not as much time that you're able to spend in your individual districts. So I do like that part of the part-time citizen legislature role, but it is a extremely busy schedule, and it puts a lot of pressure on families and work and all the different things that we have to balance.
Allie, he just mentioned a grocery store, church, ball game. I know these legislators that if they are recognized when they go out at any of these places, people will sometimes they will give you a piece of their mind. They will ask you to do something for them. So this job that they have is far more than just coming to a meeting or making a vote. This accessibility that they have to people, it's really a 24/7 job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not unlike your role on the Public Service Commissioner, Commissioner Echols. You have a constituent services aspect to your job that runs 365 days a year. And I suspect that you would hear from all of the senators and representatives with us today that they have staff dedicated to constituent services and responding to constituent inquiries. And I suspect that the best part about being a legislator is being able to go to the grocery store and hear some of that feedback, because people have a lot to say right now, right? I mean, we are in a really unique time in this country. We're going through extraordinary circumstances, whether you're talking about technological advancements and the disruption across sectors, or whether you're talking about the health pandemic. And I think that people have a lot to say, and we need to be willing to listen. And I think that, I would love to hear the senators and representatives, tell us a few stories about what they've been hearing over the last couple of years, particularly during lockdown. How special is it to be able to interact with people in person now? We've been able to do that more and more over the last several months, and the virtual conversations are effective, they're productive. This is great on StreamYard, and I tip my hat to all of the work you do, Commissioner Echols, to keep Georgia in a conversation about pivotal issues in the energy sector, as well as the communication sector. But again, I just love to hear from the senators and representatives, what kind of feedback are you getting when you're in the pharmacy or when you're filling up your tank with gas? If you still drive a gas-powered car, you should talk to Commissioner Echols or I about getting into an EV, but I'd love to hear what the constituent feedback has been.
Yeah, and let me give a caveat to this. Why don't you share, because we're having fun today, why don't you share one of the strangest locations that you've had to have a conversation about a legislative issue with a constituent, maybe that was a little bit awkward, or that was a little bit funny, or that was a little bit unusual. So I'll let anyone start that wants to start. If you want to share, because you guys are on call 24/7 and you get bombarded, I know.
All right, I'll give you a funny one to start out. My wife and I, several years ago, were vacationing in Aruba, and literally got back on the plane to come home, dressed in a Hawaiian shirt and shorts, sitting in my seat, and on the airplane walks a few constituents, and then during the flight came up and knelt down next to me and wanted to have a full conversation and of legislative updates and wanted to pass along some of their questions and concerns while flying home from vacation.
Wow. All right. How about one of the other legislators here on a funny constituent interaction?
I can do that. So I had a similar experience as Senator Albers when an elevator opened in New Orleans, and it was somebody who lived a few blocks away from me, a constituent. But the two kind of most maybe awkward places where I ran into a constituent, one is at the climbing gym, where I was, exercising and had chalk in my hair and sweat on my face. And that was interesting. But also I ran into a constituent one time right after I had eye surgery. And I was in the pharmacy waiting for my prescriptions, and a constituent walked in, and I was not with it at all.
Wow. Yeah. Being on pain medication and talking to a constituent's dangerous, I think.
Dangerous combination, yes.
We have a running joke at our house when my wife, Danae, needs me to run an errand or especially go to the grocery store. She's finally figured out, because I told her, I said, look, if you need me to go get something, I'm more than happy to get it. But how quickly do you need it? Because if I get to the grocery store, chances are it's going to take a long time. So that's just one of the parts of it you learn to deal with. But it took a little while to adjust to that. But that's what it's like.
Yeah, I think I'll add. I'm pretty sure I speak for all of my colleagues on here as well. But it's more of a privilege, not a problem. I enjoy it when people come up and speak. But I think my weirdest moment was about a couple of years ago getting a colonoscopy. The doctor who knew what I did mentioned it and said, "Oh, I think this nurse is one of your constituents." And I'm probably not in the best position to have a full conversation, but it was a constituent, and she had a couple of things she wanted to address. But I think that was the most awkward encounter I've had.
Oh my goodness. Allie, I'm sure you've heard some nightmare stories. Or maybe, Allie, maybe you've actually run into a representative or a public service commissioner somewhere where you needed to talk about an issue.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Atlanta's the small town, right? It's a big city, but it's still a really small town, especially if you're from around here. So, yeah, a lot of stories, but I want to actually, first of all, I want to note that the long days at the Capitol can feel like a colonoscopy or as bad. And I fully expect that we're going to have more of those over the next 4 months. Commissioner, I want to give you kudos because I have seen you online as well as in person really put effort into responding to constituent feedback or constituent comments that are not really delivered tactfully, right? And I think, maybe this is an interesting conversation for us to have for a few minutes, but just how we communicate with each other has changed, I think, since a lot of our conversations and a lot of our communication have moved to digital. I think that we feel that we can say things in a way that we otherwise wouldn't be proud of, right? And I want to bring it back to the way that elected officials and representatives of a district or representatives of the state have to always be aware of your tactful response, your de-escalation, what you represent, not just the emotions that you might feel inside as someone is addressing you in a way that might not be respectful or tactful, but how you have to really balance the way that you deliver your response. And I've seen you do it in real time, Commissioner Echols. It's one of the things that I've admired about you over the years is your openness to receiving that kind of feedback, aggressive or otherwise, but then the way that you're able to respond tactfully and productively. And would love to hear, others' thoughts about that.
Thank you, Allie. I just believe that a gentle answer turns away wrath. That's what I was taught is a proverb, and I do try to practice that. And and really, I like to take negative comments. I actually search for negative comments about me on social media, and then try to take people into a direct message or into another setting, a phone call, where I can get some more information. And hear them out, and then try to resolve, help, whatever that they're going through at the time. And I've found that practice has served me better than anything I've done, throughout my time on the commission. And I'd love to hear, just as our kind of final, our final kind of question here today. Let me start with either the two senators and go to the two representatives. Do you have a special way of dealing with angry constituents or people that are maybe falsely accusing you of something?
I'll take it first. So I have a social work background. I have a master of social work, and so my background is mental health. And what I was taught in mental health is to always reflect the person's feeling first. And so I apply that with my constituent services. If somebody is upset or angry, first of all, there's a lot of distrust about government out there. And my job, and why I love the opportunity of doing constituent services, is I have the opportunity to show people that government can indeed work for them and on behalf of them. So the very first thing I do with an angry or upset person is I reflect their feeling. I let them know that I understand that they're upset and that they have every reason to be upset. And then after the person calms down and begins to feel heard, then we dissect the issue.
Great. That's a great thought.
Clearly, yes. So I think listening is obviously the most important thing we can do, because sometimes people just want to be heard. Sometimes there's an answer. Sometimes there's not an answer, but listening is the most important. And then being transparent. Don't want to tell them something we can or can't do. But I think having that discussion is always good. And then I always like to remind people that sometimes we'll disagree, and that's okay. I've been married for coming on 29 wonderful years. My wife and I don't agree on everything, but we can disagree without disapproving, and we can look at all the issues we do agree upon. And the last thing I always remind if somebody's rather testy and emotional is what my grandmother said. It's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice.
Yeah, that's great. Sorry, my wife was running off in my electric cars and she didn't have my keys, so I had to yell at her to come back and grab the keys. Sorry about that. How about either of the representatives on dealing with difficult constituents or difficult situations? They're not really difficult people. They just have difficult situations sometimes.
I think when people come to you to discuss issues like that, like Senator Albers said, the most important thing is they just want to be heard. And my approach is always never, as much as possible, I try not to debate the issue in real time. If someone takes their time to walk away from the bread aisle and come track you down in Publix, they're not looking for a debate. They're looking to be heard. And I think that often diffuses the situation, because even if they're upset, letting them, leave the interaction knowing that you've heard them and not try to just explain, yourself or your point of view, as they say, debate the issue, not the person. And I think as long as you stick to that, that mantra, it typically de-escalates or at least lets them walk away knowing that they felt like they've had someone to listen to them.
Yeah, Matt, how about you?
Yeah, what I've found is that so many of our constituents, and it doesn't matter what their perspective or background is, so many of them have gotten so keyed up watching news, and that I don't care which outlet you watch, they all are designed to incite sensationalism out of you, or the social media. And so by the time that they get to me, many times they're so overworked and juiced up. We have to try to take a step back and like it's already been said, de-escalate. And I think they're surprised when they realize, hey, this is a real person. This is not a glamorous job. I have a state issued laptop computer, and if you get a response from me, it's going to be from me on an email, or I'm going to call you back. I give them a cell phone number, and maybe it is that I don't exactly help them with the specific issue that they're upset about or they need help with, but it's something else that in constituent services, and they see, hey, I was upset on this particular issue, but this is a really good person. They're genuinely working hard. They care. They're listening. And I've won so many people over just by the approach. Tim, it's so true what you said about a kind word can turn back a harsh behavior. So, that's very true.
Well, just as we wrap up today, let me ask you, how's the best way for a constituent to reach you? What is your kind of preferred contact? I know Senator Harrell, you and I do direct messages on Twitter, so you're on Twitter all the time. And Representative Allen, you are as well. Allie, you and I text back and forth. But let me start with Senator Harrell, go to Senator Albers. What's the best way for folks to reach you? What platforms?
Sure. I think that sometimes people are surprised that they can actually talk directly with us personally. And that's because we don't have a lot of staff. And I agree with Senator Albers that we would benefit from having more staff. But oftentimes, if somebody has an issue, they can come straight to me. And that would be through, Twitter, direct message, Facebook, private message, or let's see, my email address. I respond to my email personally, and that's at sally@sallyharrell.org. And lastly, I do have an administrative assistant. Her name is Carradine. That's kind of a tough name to remember, but she told me it's like Sheridan, but with a K, Carradine. And you can Google Georgia General Assembly and find me in the list of senators, and then you can directly contact Carradine, and she always knows how to get in touch with me.
Senator Albers, how about you? How do you like to be? I know you can be reached many ways, but what's the quickest way for people to reach you?
I actually prefer email and the telephone. While I do have social media accounts, there are so many out there. It is hard to keep track of all those accounts. And candidly, I think social media sometimes gets people both the good and the very bad out of folks. So I prefer folks to use the good old-fashioned method of sending an email or putting a phone call out there. And then I like to still meet with people face-to-face or via video call. And I think that can resolve things a lot better sometimes than other forms of messaging.
Representative Allen, how about you?
Yeah, I follow the same as Senator Albers. I actually have a auto reply on my Facebook and social media, especially Facebook, that if someone sends a note, it basically says this is not the appropriate venue for constituent outreach. Please call the office or email me, because I think email and phone call is probably a better way to have these conversations. You get a lot of keyboard courage on social media, and you might there's a lot of inflammatory things that are out there and that are said. So I still think the best way to contact is and have that conversation is picking up the phone or shooting an email, and I'll call them back. And like Senator Harrell said, people are shocked that I can tell you as soon as I call them back, they're like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting you to actually call." And then you have a conversation, and it's usually, you talk about de-escalation. That sometimes is de-escalation to itself. You find that the phone call is a lot less inflammatory than the email that was sent. So that's my preferred method.
Yeah, Representative Gamble?
I would say state email if it's a state issue, because it helps me respond to your need more quickly, especially if it deals with a state agency, because then I've got what you need captured in text that I can send to whoever the appropriate agency is. And so it escalates the response time, but obviously we respond to however you reach out. You know, my least favorite way is to tag any of us in a social media post. It's almost kind of a gotcha thing. I know some people do it unintentionally, and it's certainly we monitor that and respond as needed. But state email is probably the best way to reach out to me.
Allie, he mentioned about getting tagged, and actually I love those tags because I can find them, right? If I get tagged, I got tagged by a guy yesterday on Twitter who basically was saying something really, really ugly, but I found it. I found it instantly, and so I happen to like that because I want to be able to have those conversations. I remember Representative Tommy Smith from Alma one time. He was a blueberry farmer, Democratic representative who spoke to our Teen Pack kids back in 95, 96. And he said that he had his assistant that, of course, we didn't have email then, but he had his assistant take all the mail from the district and put it in one stack. And all the mail from the out of the district, he said he threw it away. And he was just, I don't know whether he was really being serious, but I think what he was trying to emphasize to my young people was that district matters, that the magic words at the Capitol is, I live in your district, right? That means so much. Allie, as we wrap up, any parting words here?
No, I mean, just, observations from a longtime lobbyist and policy wonk. So we're in the second year of the biennial. And for those who don't know, Georgia's legislature operates on a 2-year cycle. So we're in the second year, which means that legislation that was filed in the 2021 session that made some progress but didn't make it over the goal line is still available for action. And the legislature is going to start on day one working because that legislation is still active. There will be new bills as well, but this is a unique year because we're in the second year of the biennial. We're going to hit the ground running, lobbyists, legislators alike. Also, this is an election year. So there's going to be a lot of interest in getting in and getting out because everyone wants to be back in the district with an eye towards November. And this election in November is unique because it's our first election using the new maps that the legislature approved during the special session. So there's an awful lot of opportunity in the state of Georgia for legislators and regulators to lead and for our communities to become productively engaged. And I hope that, given where we are in 2022, not just with the macro, but with the micro in Georgia, with the legislature and with our regulatory issues and opportunities, that we find those opportunities to partner and work together. There's plenty of work for us to do together over the next 4 months.
Great. Well, thank you all for being on today. And for those of you that are watching live or watching after the fact on any of the platforms, we will be going back to the registration and giving 2 $50 Cheesecake Factory gift cards to 2 of you by random draw. So thank you for hanging with us today. And I will see the rest of you at the Capitol. And of course, I say to my legislative constituents, if I can ever help you at the Public Service Commission, don't hesitate to reach me on any social media platform.
Thank you.
All right, y'all.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you so much, everybody. All right,
Happy New
appreciate it.
Year.